try to fight the tears I'm crying. Stay with me, love. Stay with me here. Life has no purpose if you can't be near. We made a promise for eternity. You are my love. You are my life. I watch you live and extinguish my light. Your skin against my lips feels alien to me. A stone with softness yielding unnaturally. I love you more now you've gone from my life. I'll never leave you on this cold endless night. Lying as one, lying we two. Warmth leaves my body and flows into you. I don't know where you end or where I begin. Fall into you, falling apart. Red color sheets as it.
Well, it's that time of year again. All the ghouls, ghosts, and goblins, such as Pat Robertson, crawl out from their tombs to terrorize the living.
Welcome back. It's time for your questions and some honest answers from Pat. We'll start with this one from Titania. If Halloween is known to be a pagan secular holiday,
Pagan? Pagan is an insult. There was no pagan land where people spoke pagan and had a pagan culture. There were, however, many pre-Christian cultures and religions, such as Celtic, Norse, Germanic, Saxon, etc. These were cultures that were replaced by Christian religion and Christian culture, then labeled as pagan, which was a derogatory term meaning a country dweller, much like our insult of being a dumb hick.
why is it that many churches openly celebrate this day?
Why celebrate? Because it has evolved into a celebration that we can all enjoy. In America, Halloween has become a secular holiday. Kids from any background can participate in trick-or-treating, dressing in a costume or bobbing for apples. Grown-ups can be kids again and dress up as a sexy witch or a horny devil. Office parties often have costume contests. It's a very fun holiday, and it has evolved into an American secular holiday.
Shouldn't they be against it instead of celebrating it?
The Celtic holiday of Samhain, which occurs around the same time, is not the same as Halloween or All Hallows Eve, being the holy evening before November 1st or All Saints' Day. As a modern-day witch and reconstructionist of pre-Christian Indo-European religions, I observe the thinning of the veil, the thinning of my own mortality and the other world. Now, this metaphor can reflect a more symbolic and hidden meaning or a more direct and blatant fact. The fact that we are indeed mortal. At Samhain, or end of summer, as a witch, I remember my ancestors, my friends, my loved ones, and I face my fears, knowing I will one day join them. Storytelling was observed to pass on tales, but also to impart knowledge, wisdom, creative genius, and fantasy.
Well, I think we should
I see they dragged you from your crypt and propped you up in your chair once again. Must be the spread of hatred against pagans hour on the 700 Club. It's so lifelike. You can barely see the animatronics. And that facial CGI, it's incredible. Well done.
It's called All Saints' Eve. It wasn't necessarily pagan in its origin.
Wasn't necessarily pagan in origin. Where... What? Why? Okay. Where are you going with this, Golem?
But it has gotten very pagan, and you look at the way they used to do it, that trick-or-treating, I mean, it was serious business. These druids would come and kill your animals. if you didn't give them something. So the trick-or-treating, when little kids asking for candy.
No, the pre-Christian people of the British Isles still carried on the folk traditions of their forefathers. On May 13, 609 AD, Pope Boniface IV dedicated the Pantheon in Rome in honor of all Christian martyrs, and the Catholic feast of All Martyrs' Day was established in the Western Church. Pope Gregory III, from 731 to 741, later expanded the festival to include all saints as well as all martyrs and moved the observance from May 13th to November the 1st. By the 9th century, the influence of Christianity has spread into Celtic lands, where it gradually blended with and supplanted the older Celtic rites. In 1000 AD, the Church would make November the 2nd All Souls' Day, a day to honor the dead. It is widely believed today that the Church was attempting to replace the Celtic festival of the dead with a related but Church-sanctioned holiday. All Souls' Day was celebrated similarly to Samhain, with big bonfires, parades, and dressing up in costumes as saints, angels, and devils. The All Saints' Day celebration was also called All Hallows, or All Hallow Mass, from Middle English meaning All Saints' Day, and the night before it began to be called All Hallows' Eve and eventually Halloween. Or kill animals as a substitute for candy. You have ridiculously accused them of doing this. This is, of course, historically inaccurate. Could you imagine druids walking around in white robes carrying sacks of live animals as they went house to house? Around All Souls' Day, November the 2nd, young children would offer to pray for those in purgatory so they could enter heaven. In return, they would receive soul cakes. In Britain, the alms took the form not of cash for candles, but for cake. Bands of soulers went from house to house singing ancient souling rhymes, and small loaves, quickbreads, or cakes were handed out to them to be eaten hot while saying a prayer for the departed. Even after the Reformation, when prayers were officially no longer thought necessary to ease the passage of souls to heaven, the idea that the giving and receiving of food by the living somehow benefited or pleased the dead persisted, for souling continued, although the souling rhymes became straight begging songs. An old soul-caking play, in fact a mummer's play, survives in Cheshire. The songs have lasted too, but with little meaning now, because the soul cakes once baked in great batches as described by John Aubrey are no longer made. The sole survivor seems to be the traditional parkin, now eaten at Halloween, which is still sometimes called har cake or soul mass cake. The medieval preacher John Merck mentions this tradition of souling as old in a sermon from around 1380. Wherefore in olden time good men and women would this day buy bread and deal, give it for the souls that they loved, hoping with each loaf to get a soul out of purgatory. From Ovid's Fasti.
But churches, the problem is that we want to be liked. We want to not offend the culture.
Yes, don't offend the culture. Just make them seem like barbaric, human-sacrificing, uncultured swine that needed to be tamed by the Christian monarch. Yeah, thanks. It's been swell.
But I tell you what, instead of cursing the darkness, light a candle.
Yes, in the darkness. Maybe at night put a candle in, I don't know, a carved turnip and use it as a guide to light the way for the living and the departed. Sort of how we got the legend of Stingy Jack, which is the origin of the Jack of the Lantern, or Jack-o'-lantern. Jack again tricked the devil. Soon after Jack died, as the legend goes, God would not allow such an unsavory figure into heaven. The devil, upset by the trick Jack had played on him and keeping his word not to claim his soul, would not allow Jack into hell. He sent Jack off into the night with only a burning coal to light his way. Jack put the coal into a carved-out turnip and has been roaming the earth with it ever since. The Irish began to refer to this ghostly figure as Jack of the Lantern, and then simply Jack-o'-lantern. Beets or turnips were used till the end of the 18th, 19th century.
You can have a happy time, have a celebration in your church. You don't have to have witches and goblins and ghouls and all that stuff.
Yes, take out the element that makes up Halloween, and that is the fear, the recognition of our own mortality. What's it like, Pat? Come on, you must feel the cold breath of death on your back, that scythe coming closer and closer to the harvest.
what you can have is a celebration of joy among yourselves.
Joys. Like trick-or-treating or dressing up in costumes, bobbing for apples, telling ghost stories. You mean all those joys? Wait, bobbing for apples? Do kids even bob for apples still? Fuck, I'm old.
Do an alternative. You don't have to, but stand against the culture. If you don't do it, the culture will overwhelm you. All right?
Yes, and the last thing you want is to be overwhelmed by the culture you live in. That doesn't make any sense. Cultural identity is very important. If you believe you have a Christian culture, then by all means celebrate it. But don't make up lies about the Druids and pre-Christian people. Anyways, thank you all. Have a wonderful Halloween. And if you celebrate it, have a happy Samhain. Until next time, I will see you in hell, you heathens.
Fall into